From Hampton Beach, New Hampshire, and the historic Ashworth by the Sea Hotel, it's Politics in Progress. With your host, Charlie Sherman.
Good Sunday morning to you. It is Politics in Progress, and we come to you from the beautiful Ashworth by the Sea in Hampton Beach. Every Sunday morning, we talk politics, local, state, national politics. That's what we do here every Sunday morning. Let me introduce our esteemed panel today. The former Republican State Party Chair, Fergus Cullen, is with us. Good morning, Fergus.
Hi, how are you?
Next to Fergus is the man in the middle. Josh Rogers of New Hampshire Public Radio is with us. Good morning, Josh.
Good morning, Charlie.
And at the end, and we keep him closest to me, is the former ambassador to Belize, former Democratic State Party Chair, and immigration attorney in the city of Manchester. George Bruno joins us. Good morning.
Good morning, Charlie.
All right, we've got a lot of things we're going to try and cover this morning, so let's get right down to it. Last week we spent some time talking about the U.S. Senate race and the ever-growing field of potential candidates, particularly on the Republican side, or really just on the Republican side. But we've had a number of names that are popping up in the District 2 congressional race, and that list is starting to grow. The latest name that came out is a man who used to hold that seat in the 2nd District. Charlie Bass is now exploring a run, and it looks like he may be throwing his hat into the ring for that seat. Also, on the Republican side, Jennifer Horn says she's still interested in running. Robert Guida and Andrew Hemingway, also Republicans. On the Democratic side, Katrina Sweat, Ann McLean Custer, and John DeJoy. Fergus, let me start with you. Charlie Bass is the latest. It was his seat. Is he now the front runner as far as Republicans, if in fact Charlie decides to run?
Well, I don't think anyone's the front runner. It'll be interesting to see if this prompts more people to get into the race as well, who figure, hey, the more candidates who are in it, all I need to do is get 30-35% of a primary, and I could be the next congressman. It's an open seat. It'll be interesting to see if it becomes a battle about ideology. Certainly Jennifer Horn is considered to be a conservative candidate. I don't think there's any question that Charlie Bass was a moderate when he was a member of Congress before. And in a primary, a low-turnout primary, in a one-on-one race, I'd say it's an even shot right now.
Josh, who does a crowded field like this benefit?
Well, I think it would benefit Charlie Bass, assuming that I agree with Fergus that, primary will hew to the base, and therefore it makes his run potentially more challenging than it might seem like on paper. But I would think he would certainly be a favorite, and the more people get in the race, presumably they're going to be getting into the right of Bass, and so that would probably help him, the name recognition, the fact that he held that office. I mean, that could count against him, certainly. But, he knows his way around the district and is certainly a more experienced candidate than any of the other people likely to get in.
George, on the Republican side, do you see Charlie as the front runner?
Yeah, you'd have to concede that Charlie Bass would be the front runner. Although, Charlie Bass, I think time has passed by, and it's probably time for a new face in the district, which is why people chose Hodes over him when they had a head-to-head race. As far as Jennifer Horn, people I think still don't know her, so I agree with both my panelists here that it's Bass's to lose on the Republican side. On the Democratic side, you've really got a great lineup between Katrina Sweat and Annie McLean Custer. At this point, I'd have to give the edge to Katrina Sweat as a person who's, campaigned before in the district, knows the district. Her husband was the congressman from that district. She's got $1 million sitting in the bank, ready to go at the campaign. So it's going to be an interesting race.
Josh, on the Democratic side, is it at this point those two candidates, the two females running for that seat, or do the others have a shot in there?
Well, I think everyone has a shot at this point. George is right. Katrina Sweat has a rather large bolt of cash sitting in the bank. Ann McLean Custer has been fundraising aggressively. She knows a lot of people. Her family is well known in New Hampshire. She's been pretty aggressive in raising money. It'll be interesting to see, the first go around with the filings. She did quite well. It'll be interesting to see when the next filings will come out. They'll probably be out by the time this airs. Actually, she'll have a decent bolt of cash. We don't really know what she's like on the stump. I do think Katrina Sweat has some problems within the Democratic Party. I mean, a lot of party loyalists aren't wild about the Sweats, but we'll see. I mean, she's formidable candidate certainly, and she's got a lot of money. As for Representative DeJoy, we'll see. I mean, the standard line on him is he's a firefighter and or EMT, and that he'll do well with labor, but. Thus far, it certainly looks as if it's going to be either Anne McLean-Custer or Katrina Sweat, who, is not officially in the race.
Fergus, you love talking about Democrats.
Well, Katrina Sweat has $900,000 sitting in her state U.S. Senate campaign for a couple of years, and it's going to be very difficult, I think, for Anne McLean-Custer to raise that kind of money. But she certainly did do well in her first reporting period and impressed a lot of people. And, the ability to fundraise is a measure of how good a candidate you are, how much support you have in some way, and I think a lot of people will be looking at those next finance reports, which become available publicly in just 2 weeks.
Is this race, and one of the reasons that Charlie Bass is thinking of getting back into this race, is this race going to turn as the elections of 2006 turned, where everybody said, all right, we're going to just throw everybody out if they have an R next to their name? Is there a sense out there right now that we're going to go the other way and we're going to throw everybody out that has a D next to their name because nothing's happening in Congress and people are getting frustrated?
Certainly the pendulum is in motion, and in contrast to what the ambassador said earlier about the 2006 election, it didn't have anything to do with Paul Hodes. It had everything to do with George Bush and the Iraq War, and that's why New Hampshire had 2 Democratic congressmen that year defeat incumbent Republicans. But Josh points out that Katrina Sweat has some challenges within the Democratic Party. She's considered a more moderate member, and the New Hampshire Democratic Party has taken a sharp turn to the left, and they could nominate a real left-winger, creating a greater opportunity for a Republican candidate.
I want to pick up on a point that Fergus said when he called Charlie Bass a moderate, and it's true, he speaks as a moderate, but the fact is every time it came up for a vote in Congress, he voted the party line, and so that moderation was really swept away by the really over-the-cliff, very ideological right-wing votes that the Republican Party wound up making then. So his moderation really didn't display itself very often.
Well, I think one thing with Congressman Bass, and this was a point made in the Concord Monitor earlier in the week by Arnie Arneson that I thought was relevant, was that he has shown an inclination to, potentially be a more moderate fellow when the other party is in power, which is, of course, natural. And, I guess we'll see. Certainly, you can look at the candidates from both parties. The incumbent Democrats. I mean, everybody votes with the leadership, and perhaps the litmus of you vote 90%. I mean, they all pretty much vote 90% of the time with the party. I mean, I think your point is fair that Bass voted more with Bush than his sort of "I'm a maverick" presentation would suggest. And I do agree with you, Charlie, that the mood will be important, and we're still a long ways from the election, and some things get done in the meantime, and it could be a lot more momentum for Democrats than it now seems that there might be.
All right, we have to take a break. You're watching Politics in Progress. When we return, should a candidate have to reveal who they voted for in an election? We'll ask that question and more when we return from the Ashworth by the Sea and Hampton Beach. This is Politics in Progress.
Ashworth by the Sea offers the ultimate beachfront dining experience. With 4 unique oceanfront dining options, there is truly something for everyone's palate, along with a full entertainment schedule that keeps everybody coming back for more.